Guns in Destiny 2 have never felt so good. And that's the problem. In the span of just 9 days of the new season, we've seen 5 incredibly fun guns to use. The Dead Man's Tale exotic scout rifle from the wonderfully spooky Presage quest, the Gambit hand cannon bottom dollar, the Messenger pulse rifle from Trials which rolls with Desperado, the Igneous Hammer Adept for those of us who managed to go flawless, and the glorious return of the Palindrome, which I've only gotten one to drop out of the 27 night. I don't really remember a time in Destiny 2 where we've gotten 4, 5, or even 6 meta-shifting weapons in such a short period of time. If you love Destiny for its gunplay, Season of the Chosen's loot is among some of the best we've seen since Forsaken. And the tragic part about all of that is, none of it matters. I'm Ascendant Nomad, and I'm your Crucible Doctor. Welcome to the State of the Meta for Season of the Chosen. The term meta loosely defines the most effective tools and strategies for coming out on top. Some like to say it's short for most effective tactics available. In Destiny 2, the meta has traditionally been thought of as the best weapons, loadouts, and builds. Period. In theory, the right combinations of things would help give you an edge over an equally skilled opponent if used correctly. So if you equip a long-range option like the Messenger, having a short-range option to allow you to push in or defend your position is not just recommended, but mandatory. Normally, this would all be very fine and well, except for the fact in PvP at least, it's become increasingly down to what abilities you have. Abilities have always mattered in Destiny, but never to this degree. But we'll save that for later. Let's start by going over the broad strokes of the weapons you want to know about for this season. The talking points of the short, mid, and long range meta haven't really changed from the previous season, so if you want to get the rundown on that, please go watch my previous State of the Meta video before you watch this one. All of it will still apply. This season, the meta is a continuation of what was started in Beyond Light. 120 RPM hand cannons have been bolstered by the addition of Bottom Dollar and Igneous Hammer, 2 energy weapons which boast better base stats than their kinetic counterparts. 120s pair the mobility of a hand cannon with the safety of a scout rifle, alongside big damage, so it's no surprise to see them dominate competitive, Trials, and Crucible in general. Though with the difficulty in obtaining them both right now, last season's staples of Steady Hand, Crimmel's Dagger, and True Prophecy may still persist. High-impact pulse rifles too have been given further life with the addition of the Messenger, a Redrix's Claymore clone that can roll with Desperado and a whole host of other perks. This gun is a pinnacle in all but name, and is a genuinely scary presence in the Crucible. It's not infallible though. Desperado requires you to be constantly on target to make the best of it, which means you can be countered by a smart dueler or anyone who wants to play cover when you don't. 140 RPM hand cannons still remain a viable option for those that prefer them. Last season we got a stat monster in the form of Hawkmoon, and this season we got another called the Palindrome, which very much feels like an energy Ostringer to me. It's the base, the gold standard by which all other 140s should be judged against. It's a remarkably consistent experience that rewards a skilled and patient player, though like the Bottom Dollar, its drop rate is abysmal. Shotguns continue to be shotguns. The best shotgun in the game is still the Fellwinter's Lie, which sees its reign of dominance come to a close at the end of the season when it gets sunset. With the range of 120s, shotguns offer a natural balance to cover the short-range effectiveness that 120s lack, whilst being the perfect pairing for a highly mobile playstyle. Honourable mentions go to Astral Horizon, which has been reissued this season in Trials without quick draw, a trend we may see more of in aggressive frame shotguns moving forward. Retrofuturist has also been reissued into the general loot pool to better compete with 7 Seraph CQC, which continues to be an excellent option for general PvP. Slug shotguns are still as effective as ever, with the majority of the general population still running into slug users like they're 8 years old when the ice cream truck rolls down the street. Snipers are having a bit of a quiet time at the moment. The nerfs to aim assist and the increase in flinch have deterred a lot of people from maining them as freely as they once did. This is in part due to the extra skill required to now land a shot in general, but also with the emergence of 120, sniper mains can successfully pivot to that archetype of weapon to fulfill their playstyle demands, and a lot more safely too. That being said, a Dord is still as lethal as ever in the right hands, and Frozen Orbit is suspiciously solid despite the higher zoom factor. So why doesn't any of this matter? In a word, stasis. If the idea of this video is to encourage you to think about what the most effective tools are at your disposal to win games, then I would be kidding you if I didn't bring up stasis. Stasis has continued to be the meta-defining subclass for PvP, and that is not likely going to change anytime soon. The new aspects and fragments that have been introduced have added depth to an already very in-depth roster of abilities. These new fragments, Whisper of Torment in particular, synergize extremely well with the core grenades and melee options to not only make them stronger, but more available more of the time. From a game design standpoint, Stasis is a success story on how to energize and innovate a key on-the-box feature that most games require full-blown sequels to introduce. Credit should be given where credit is due. In terms of PvP, with Season of the Chosen, Bungie have chosen to buff Hunter Shurikens and leave the wildly overpowered Behemoth Super and underpowered Shadebinder class untouched. If Warlocks did not have game-breakingly good light subclasses in Attunement of Sky for Dawnblade and Attunement of Control for Stormcaller, it would not be worth running Warlocks at all in PvP. In everyday Crucible, Stasis is an annoyance to deal with. It's fun to use, and severely unfun to play against because it freezes you. Freezing someone in a movement-based game is interesting, to say the least. At least in 6v6, you have 5 teammates to siphon information from in order to avoid supers and abilities better. In 3v3 game modes, especially Trials of Osiris, the pinnacle of metagame knowledge and utilization of weapons and gun skill, it really doesn't matter what weapons you bring to the table as long as you can get kills with them. After all, killing grants you super energy. Now, you have the contenders I talked about for the best weapons in the game right now, but everything you do in Trials should be in aid of getting your super faster. That means using what weapons work best for you, and running 9 or 10 intellect with equally high recovery. The reason you want to get your Stasis super is because aside from Shadebinder, a half-decently cast Squall and even an accidentally popped Behemoth is an uncounterable death sentence to you and your fire team, unless you have a Stasis super yourself to shut it down. I've played over 150 Trials matches this season. I've gilded my flawless title, and I can count on one hand the number of rounds when someone popped a Behemoth and we came out on top. Behemoth's mobility is not just good, but downright broken. Having a super that can quite literally cross the map, secure 3 kills, then retrace its steps before running out is oppressive. It's too strong, and it should be considered meta. Use it. Similarly, Silence and Squall. With its AoE radius, it can shut down pretty much anything that you have. And even if you get only 1 kill with it, you're still a man up with a temporary area denial on that orb. That should be an easy round win for competent teams. And like I said before, the Shurikens got buffed and you can use 2 of them. Use it. Freezing in general is still a death sentence. It's very telling that when Bungie had their discussion on how to make freezing more tolerable, the consensus ended up being make them harder to kill whilst frozen, and not let's allow them to break out quicker. Kinetic weapons deal less damage to frozen targets, but specials still do their full damage, and it still takes around 2 seconds to break out, including the time to get frozen. Bungie wants you to burn your special on a freeze, but let's be honest, you were going to do that anyways. Freezing just makes it that much easier. All of this is a very roundabout way of saying that if you're not actively doing everything in your power to freeze or slow someone, or pull someone out of cover with your ridiculously strong Dustfield grenade, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. The only exception is the Rise of Chaos Reach, which when paired with Geomax stabilizers allows you to get 2 to 3 supers per Trials game without really trying. The larger problem here should be evident by now if it isn't already. Stasis is so goddamn strong that the only way to beat it is to use it yourself, or use something that's even stronger in certain situations. And those options are few and far between. Is this a problem? Unreservedly, without a shadow of a doubt, yes. Remember how we had an issue with power creep and that resulted in sunsetting? This is the same thing, but for supers and abilities. Stasis is way too strong in PvP, and the only way you're going to get people to use something different is if something stronger comes out. Bungie's made it very clear that Stasis is here to stay, and their balancing priorities make it clear that they want players to adapt to it rather than to neuter it and make it on par with Light. And if that's the case, Destiny should consider itself an ability shooter first and foremost. Lead in with your abilities first and finish off what you couldn't with your guns second. Sounds an awful lot like the fusion grenade meta from Destiny 1 Year 3. And boy did a lot of people hate Destiny 1 Year 3. It's been 3 months since Beyond Lights dropped. Stasis has been doubled down upon to the point where it has significantly shrunk the skill gap and allowed abilities to dictate the terms of engagement in a more powerful way than guns ever could. And I'm conflicted to even say that. My channel has historically been about improving your mental fortitude in order to better utilize your game so you become a better fighter when the going gets tough, to let go of what you can't control in order to focus better on the things that you can. With Stasis, you can't control how strong it is, but you can't dismiss it at all. You have to use it. You have to care. And that's not good for anyone's mental resilience. The best thing I can recommend for you is to see it as another tool, a means to an end. Bungie have stated that they're working to address the gunplay to ability balance, and that's fine. But that future isn't here yet. The state of the meta in Season of the Chosen is unbalanced. It's got some of the best weapons we've seen since Forsaken, where every new gun that drops, irrespective of its viability and spot in the meta, is just plain fun to use. But it's all undone because in order to win, you can't focus on perfecting your guns. You have to perfect your freezing. This isn't fun to play. And once the novelty wears off, people will quit again. Unless they continue to drop incredible loot at the beginning of Trials cards, I don't expect the activity to survive for much longer than a month. The meta should be this diverse and complicated subject about what the best Destiny players use to win, period. But today, it's about who's got the best Duskfield placement. I am concerned. If you like this video, you know what to do. My name is Ascendant Nomad, and I'm your Crucible Doctor. Cheers.